Good evening, Mr. Dant. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you're coming on the show at a very ungodly hour, 5, 5 a.m. Washington DC. Everyone else is
Yep, yep.
sleeping except CrossFit coaches and the like.
Yeah, right. The coaches are the only people up this early usually, right?
Yeah. But what do they say about the 5 a.m. club? You get more done at 5 a.m. than any other hour of the day.
I got to tell you, in my experience as a coach, the 5 a.m., 5:30 people are the most committed, consistent, and crazy group of people in
the
any
members,
gym.
the
Yep.
members there. That is they're an unusual crowd. It's funny when we have at our box when we have community days and you get the 5 a.m. meeting up with the 6 p.m.
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
5 p.m. class, and there's this unspoken rivalry between the two groups, but it's always heaps of fun. But yeah, welcome to the CrossFit Affiliate Members Podcast. We shorten it to the Camp. It's one of the only Australian long-form CrossFit focused podcasts. And when I say CrossFit, all things health really.
Mhm.
Not just the sport of CrossFit, but CrossFit epitomizes what I believe is a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle, and it's also great fun. So we just have heaps of guests. We do have CrossFit Games athletes on the show, but I really love talking to everybody and anybody who's got an interesting story to tell. And yours is pretty cool, Bronson. I've sort of had a look at some of the stuff that you put out there. For our viewers who may not have come across you, I'll just play a little promo video. Eh? Should we do that? Just did you see that one that I put on the
I
YouTube
did. I
channel?
saw that.
Yeah. Let's put that on the screen for any of our viewers to just get a little bit of a glimpse at Coach Bronson.
A coach, author, and mentor dedicated to helping people transform their lives through fitness and nutrition.
Is everybody ready?
Over the past decade, he's empowered individuals from all walks of life, from soldiers to grandparents, to build strength, resilience, and a confident body.
I've been where you are. I once battled my own health challenges, losing over 70 pounds and overcoming chronic injuries. Now in my 50s, I'm stronger and healthier than ever. I'm here to help you find the same freedom.
Certified in metabolic health, nutrition, strength and conditioning, and more, Coach Bronson offers a unique approach grounded in science, customized for sustainable success. Whether it's through his best-selling books, public speaking, or one-on-one coaching, his goal is simple: to help you live your best life.
My approach, it's about keeping things simple and personal. With nutrition, strength training, and a focus on the essentials, we can eliminate the confusion and get you to your goals. Let's get to work.
Cool. I like that.
That always gets me pumped up. I love it.
When did you do that video? When did you create that video?
That one, that was probably last year. My girlfriend and I hosted a conference in 2022, and that's where most of that footage came from. So we took that. We did obviously a sizzle reel for the conference, but then I was like, hey, man, I need something for myself because I like to speak. I try to speak get out and do some public speaking a few times a year. So I figured I need something to kind of put something out there to say, hey, there's this guy. He does stuff. He's been around for a while. Come have him talk at your event. So
there's a lot. You're obviously pretty busy. There's a lot there. Where do we start? Like other than your physicality, you look pretty ripped. You obviously train a lot. Low body fat percentage.
Yeah.
How old are you to start with?
I'm 53.
53. Okay.
I'm 53. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Same age as me.
Okay.
I'm nearly 53, 52, almost 53. but and coach. That's your Instagram page is Coach Bronson.
Mhm.
That's kind of how a lot of people refer you to as you're their coach. And what does that mean? What is coach? What are you a coach of for them?
It's changed a lot. I started out in CrossFit. So just a little bit about me and my
Mm,
background.
mm,
I got started in this whole world of health and fitness and wellness in my 30s, because I realized I was a fat slob who was out of shape. And I had to make a decision. There was a combination of things as far as my own identity. There's a lot of mindset stuff. And when we talk about what does it mean to be a coach, I've
mm.
learned over the past 15 years that it's much more about helping people get through the crap that's up here than anything else. The fitness is easy, the nutrition is easy, getting through your own mind and how you're looking at things and the things that are screwed up in our heads is really where most of the work that I do is.
So
Um,
you said there's that mindset. Do you think that means discipline? Do you think discipline is one of the things that you
partially,
need to coach
partially.
coach to
I
your
think the biggest thing, if I had to put one thing in the bucket to say, of all of the issues in the mindset arena
Mhm,
that people need to work on in order to get to where they want to go, it would be developing self-awareness.
mhm,
I think that's the biggest thing. You don't know if you need discipline if you don't know what discipline is lacking. You don't know if you need motivation until you're aware that motivation is lacking. You don't know what you need until you're aware of where the gap is. And most people aren't aware of the gap. Most people aren't aware of their failings. Most people aren't aware of what their motivation is or isn't. Most people just aren't aware of the habits and the perceptions and the belief systems that they have built in their lives so that they can change them. So
mhm,
I think probably the biggest thing when it comes to mindset is developing a level of self-awareness and honesty about what you find,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
So we can become aware, number one, but once we built that awareness, now we have to say what is true and what do I control and what can I change, and then I have to be the one to change it. I
mhm,
tell people all the time, it's not your fault until it is.
mhm,
If you don't know, you can't be held accountable for changing something. But once you know that it needs to be changed, and then once you know how to change it, if it doesn't change, now it's your fault. Right. So,
Well, a lot of people they don't know what they're capable of too.
mm,
Like
mhm,
they they just think it's normal to feel tired all the time. They think it's normal to have low physical capacity, functional
yeah,
capacity. They think it's normal to be overweight, or they will usually make excuses for it.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's in my genes. It's my mum and my parents were overweight, or I'm not athletic. I just
right.
and I suppose that's what you mean by a little bit about self awareness and saying, hey, no, that's not actually something that is going to be a chain around your neck for the rest of your life
Exactly. Exactly.
if you
And that's
get some
where I
intervention.
was. And that's where I was in my 30s. Right. So I
Mhm,
didn't
mhm,
realize how bad I had gotten. I didn't realize how out of shape and sick that I was. In my mid 30s, I was confronted with a couple things in my life. The woman I was seeing at the time basically said, "You need to start caring about yourself
mhm,
or I'm out because
mhm,
I care about myself. And if you don't care about yourself, this isn't going to work." And then I saw some pictures. We went to the beach and my daughter took a picture of me. And this is in one of my books. I've got the picture in the book basically saying this picture changed my life. She took a picture. I looked at it later on in the day and I just had never been aware of how physically out of shape I was, how I just looked like a fat slob. I'm sitting on
mhm,
this chair at the beach. I got man boobs, my guts hanging out. And it was like, what? Hold on a second. This isn't me.
mhm,
Like this is, I was in the army. I was in infantry. I was combat engineer. I was in shape. I could do all these things. Who is this guy? And it confronted the reality of my life was not what my own individual personal image of myself was. And I had to make a decision, right? I was now aware and I knew I had to do something. So I had to make a choice. So I decided to do something. And
Oh,
fortunately, it was
why
CrossFit
did
that I found at that time.
why did you get that way? Like what happened in your life to make you lose your health and identity as a healthy
The
person?
normal stuff. Got married, had kids, got a desk job.
Mhm,
Right. The requirements. I was in the military, full-time active duty for several years. When I got out, the external requirement of having to stay in shape was gone.
mhm, mhm,
The artificial motivation of doing things specifically to be physically capable was no longer there. So I still had the image of being that guy. I went
mhm,
to the gym, but not necessarily to train. It was more of a check the box. Yes, I go
mhm,
to the gym. Yes, I have a membership. It was more of a
mhm,
social affair than it was an actual
mhm.
intentful activity to improve capacity. Um, and it just kind of deteriorated. But because the image of the fit, active kid who was in the army never left my head. I
Mhm.
never connected where my body had actually gotten to. Right. I
Did
was the
you
guy
did
who was 70 pounds overweight, but depending on the clothes that I wore, looked like I was just big and strong.
Mhm,
Right. I didn't look super obese until I took my shirt off.
mhm,
And it's like,
mhm.
oh crap, what is going on here? But so,
You got the
you know,
spare tire, the love handle.
yeah, well, not even just like I said, man, boobs, gut, love handle, all that
Mhm.
stuff. But if you wear the right t-shirt, everything looks fine.
Did you back then, say 20 odd years ago, did you understand much about nutritional
Not at all.
science as you do now?
Not at all. Nothing
Okay.
at all. Everything I knew back then is the same stuff most people know, air quotes, now that you and I are combating against because it's all wrong.
Because I
Right.
wonder, one of the things you said that the the requirement for you to do PT when you come out of the army, you go into an office environment, which is like the modern world's domestic cage. I
Mhm.
call it. It's like we're
Yeah.
we're a wild animal. We're just part of the animal kingdom, right? We're just another species on the planet. But we've created this domestic cage for human beings that we call modern society. But it's no different to putting a Bengal tiger in a 3 by 4 meter steel cage and letting everyone look at it and eat popcorn,
Yeah.
right?
That's a very interesting analogy. I like that. Yeah.
But if human beings naturally remained in a non-industrialized existence culture, and we were eating healthy and we maintained our nutritional requirements, my theory is that those things of deteriorating metabolic health would not occur because because the reason you start to feel sedentary, the reason you feel a lack of motivation, the reason why your body doesn't even know that it's getting sick is because it's kind of being railroaded by the corruption of your hypothalamus and your appetite centers and your satiety centers and all of that stuff, which normally, when it's functioning well, you would just go out and exercise whether you were in the army or not.
Correct. Well, there's a different motivation in survival
Mm,
than in living in an environment where survival isn't a concern and you have to artificially identify motivations that are internal because of an understanding. There's another level, right? We have the knowledge and the understanding and the ability to comprehend biological and physiological impact of
mm,
activity, nutrition, environment, etc. So we have an ability to connect the things that we do to how our body performs. We have to utilize that connection because we don't have the external stimulus of running from tigers and lions and dinosaurs all the time, right? We're not trying to survive. We're not running 2 miles a day to try to find food and hunt it and then carry it home. That's not how we live our lives. So it's a completely different scenario. You're right. It's the modern cage. It's the if you're familiar with the mismatch theory in evolution, right? The idea that industrialization, modernization has actually been more detrimental in many aspects than when we were living off the land.
It's kind of like suppressed the primal requirements of the human body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Industrialization, we're sitting here now on a computer screen. We've sat in this. I've sat in this office for 8 hours already today. I've done 1 hour of CrossFit like half an hour ago. That was my little. That 1 hour of CrossFit was my escape from
exactly.
from the domestic cage. I got out of the domestic cage for 1 hour to do what my body primarily is programmed to do.
Right.
And my DNA is programmed to do that. But
And
so
even
many people don't.
Yeah, and even then, if you really want to get into it, that's technically not natural either, because it's 1 hour out of a 24-hour period where, we go back 100, 200, 300 years, and it was every day. You get up in the morning. I mean, the closest thing we have now would probably be farmers, right? They get up, or ranchers, right? They get up to, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe earlier, and they start work. They start doing their work, and their work is physical all day long. And then they come home and they go to bed and they get up and they do it again. And there is a physical demand on their body to perform every day, all day long. That's much closer, right, to what we used to be versus where 99% of the world is now.
Yeah. And when you go out to those very rare and shrinking sort of locations on the planet, Africa, Papua New Guinea, northern China, which I've been to, they squat beautifully.
Oh yeah.
They just their smoko, their downtime is in a nice deep ass to grass squat, and they're 80 years old, and it looks identical to the little toddler who's playing in the dirt. Like, it's fascinating.
It's actually, if you can get into a good deep squat like that, it's actually kind of relaxing. You can sit there forever.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about how I got started.
Yeah.
Basically,
so you got sick, and what pulled you out of it? Your partner gave you a bit of an ultimatum.
My partner at the time, my daughter's in the picture. Well, it was really coincidental and fortunate for me. It was around that time I was almost 40 years old. I went on a cruise for my 40th birthday, and I'm in the gym on the elliptical or treadmill or something, and I'm looking across into the area of the gym on the ship that had dumbbells, and I'm looking over, and there's this guy with like the 70-pound dumbbells, 80-pound dumbbells, throwing them up in the air, switching hand, doing. I'm like, what the heck is that guy doing? And now I know, right? He's doing dumbbell snatches, and I'm looking at him like, he's got these heavy ass weights, and he's throwing them around like they're nothing. I'm like, what in the world is he doing? And I had to go talk to him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Right. So I went over here to do my curls or whatever. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm doing a workout, blah, blah, blah. I own a CrossFit gym in Miami.
Cool.
And I'm on vacation with my girlfriend. And I'm like, what is CrossFit?
It wasn't.
And so for the entire week on the cruise, basically hung out with him and his girlfriend, and we did CrossFit workouts. He showed me, he basically gave me like a beginner's intro to CrossFit on the boat.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this is amazing.
That's so cool.
I need to figure this out.
So for the whole holiday on the cruise, you had DOMs.
Yeah, the whole holiday, like we hung out with them, we did everything. We did workouts every day, and I realized how out of shape I really was.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't even do full workouts. Just the warm-ups were kicking my ass at the time. Right. So I went to, we came home, I found a gym. And of course, the gym that I found, I don't know if you're familiar with 12 Laborers.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so they had a couple teams in the games in the early 2017 to 2019, something like that. It was a very competitive gym.
This is in Miami, was it? No.
That's in Maryland. in
Oh,
Maryland.
okay. Yep.
Yeah, near DC, Baltimore and DC.
Okay. Okay.
So found a gym, started going in 2010, 2011. And it's been on ever since. Fell in love with it. My first CrossFit, what was your first CrossFit workout? My first CrossFit workout was Fran. I walked in the door. They're like, "Hey, what's up? Welcome to the gym." And, here's this workout we're going to do. It's only like 10 minutes long. I'm like, "Oh, okay. This sounds fun." They taught me how to do kipping pull-ups that day. I was like, "Oh, great. This is fun." But yeah. So yeah, 12 livers.
This is where you train now, or?
No. I've moved on since then.
Oh, okay.
That was that. I mean, that was 2011, 2010,
Okay.
something like that. That I was there.
Yep.
But
Okay.
they host the Mid-Atlantic Classic, I believe, which is one of the qualifying competitions for the games.
Right.
They've done really well for themselves. They've grown a lot as far as that gym goes.
Cool. But that's where you started to.
That's where I started. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we moved. I found another gym. I started coaching. Then
Okay, so
eventually
you did your level 1.
did my level 1, started coaching at a gym in Baltimore, did that for a couple of years, and then opened a gym in 2014. So 2014 to 2019, right before COVID, actually, I sold my gym. And thank God that I did, because I would not have wanted to be a gym owner during that period of time.
It was
and
tough.
moved everything online. So I moved online.
What was the name of your gym?
So CrossFit PCR, also Ellicott City Health and Fitness. It was in Maryland.
Does it still have a?
The owners, actually, they're doing great too. They're doing a good job. They just hit the 10-year anniversary. So I owned it from 2014 to 2019, and then they bought it and they've been running it. They've been doing great ever since.
Cool. What does PCR stand for?
Pride Community Results.
Okay. That would have been appropriate around COVID when everyone was getting PCR tested.
Yeah. Yep.
Unnecessarily, I must say. Okay. And so then you sold the gym and started working like an online.
Yep. Doing online group stuff, individual coaching, still mostly lifestyle, general population. And then just recently I've been moving into, so got my level 3, spent a lot of time getting different other things on the more exercise, sports science side of the house, trying to focus more on people like us, right? 40s, 50s, and 60s, people who are athletic or have been athletic in the past and may be wondering, like, how come I can't do what I used to do? I'm getting old. Everything sucks. Everything hurts, all that kind of stuff. Because the biggest thing for me has been realizing that exercising the right way and eating the right way has enabled me to turn back the time, turn back the clock. My experience, unlike most people, I started with fitness and then found nutrition. A lot of people find nutrition and never really think that they need to do fitness. And that's probably the biggest frustration I have in the low carb, keto, carnivore space, is this mindset that nutrition will fix everything. And that if I just fix my nutrition, I'm going to be metabolically efficient and I won't get sick and I'll be healthy, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody always forgets that, hey, you need to be physically capable as well. Right. Nobody has this concept. And I have to say, I've never met Greg Glassman. I am so thankful for the CrossFit methodology, because nothing in all of the training that I have ever done anywhere else has ever packaged health the way that CrossFit does. Understanding the sickness wellness continuum, understanding what fitness is, and understanding the impact of physical capacity to do things on metabolic function is something that nobody, I have NASM certifications, NSCA certifications, weightlifting, powerlifting, functional movement screen. I got precision nutrition. I've got all of the major trainings and certifications out there, right? I've got a master's in exercise science and nutrition. I'm getting a doctorate in health science. No one ever talks about that.
No.
In none of these things have I ever heard anybody talk about this continuum and the connection between health and fitness, the impact that nutrition has on fitness or health, the impact that your biological, and this is something I wrote about in my last book. The human body is not a system. It is a collection of systems, right? We have a neurologic system, a biological system, and a physiological system. And the three of those systems are all impacted by physical activity, physical stimulus, and nutrition stimulus. And those two things together is what maintains our function. And we always talk about the nutrition side and we never talk about the fitness side.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, I'll try to sort of paraphrase it. It's almost like we can have lots of certifications, and I can say my medical degree and my specialist training degree is, and all of the certifications that you listed off, and other dietitians and nutritionists and exercise physiologists, etc. They're all like one piece of the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
Right. But what the methodology, and I think what Greg kind of what was so genius about what Greg created was that it kind of put all of the pieces into place. So now you can see the whole image of what health is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I go a little bit further to just sort of describe what I refer to as the pillars of health. The pillars, and if you think about a building and a platform, the pillars that support health are movement, proficiency, quality movement, not just Gumby movement, but quality movement, quality nutrition, not just eating, Cheerios, sleep, quality sleep, not sleep because you've exhausted yourself after night clubbing and drinking alcohol, and quality stress management. Stress that you can control, not you don't want stress in your life that's out of your control. I like stress. I like to have deadlines. I like to do things that I'm in control of.
That's a huge piece.
Yeah,
that's a huge piece.
You just
because we try to avoid stress, and that's the wrong mentality. Stress avoidance is not the same as stress management. And I think people get that confused. Stress management is being able to accept the stress and not have it kill you.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And that is where, the combination of nutrition and fitness come into play. And I have this diagram that I really love. When you talk about nutrition and fitness, nutrition is removing and improving your body's ability to, it's removing stress from, if you're doing it right, and improving your biological ability to handle stress. It's that internal, how your body functions internally, right? Removing the extra effort, the overhead of the things that are making your body do things it doesn't need to do, and supporting how it does things, becoming more efficient in the things it wants to do and needs to do just to survive. So nutrition is an internal stress management tool. Fitness is the same thing, but it's about external stress. What can your body handle of the things in life that are physically affecting your body? Right. So I love how you said control, because every time you exercise, every time you go to a workout, you are purposefully and intentfully adding stress to your life in a way that you can control, because it's practice for when life puts stress on you that you can't control. So you are building the ability to manage physical and handle physical stress. And the two of those together is where health and quality of life come from. That's literally the whole idea of being, preparing for the unknown and unknowable. Right? You're training in a known quantity so that you can be ready for the unknown quantity.
Yep. And I suppose there's the pyramid, right? There's the pyramid that kind of that CrossFit is built around. He hasn't used the word movement quality or functional movement quality there, but that's kind of integrated into the wording weightlifting, because weightlifting epitomizes the most the most high demand functional movement.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's what got us talking, right? I contacted you about this whole video that the sham doctor put out there about why you should avoid CrossFit, and it pissed me off.
There's a lot of CrossFit haters. There's a lot of CrossFit
and I
haters.
wanted to talk about that because it's just, number one, I know it's all clickbait, and I know it is what it is. He doesn't really care about CrossFit. He's just doing it for the views, but people listen to that stuff, and it really just drives me crazy. When I see ignorance being spouted about something that obviously they know nothing about, right? I've never met anybody who has done CrossFit for a period of time, right, who's like, oh my God, CrossFit sucks. It's like, okay, maybe you got a bad gym, maybe you got bad coaches, nobody's perfect, and no matter where you go, there's always going to be people that don't know what they're doing as well as others, right? I mean, you can't blast or put an entire methodology of millions of people into one bucket because of one bad experience, right? Yep. And that is what I see often. Somebody will say, hey, I had a bad coach. I went to a gym and I got hurt at this gym. Okay, that happens. You could go to a Pilates class and get hurt. You could go to a Zumba class, and I've seen people get hurt at Zumba, right? I mean, it's not the product, right? Well, I should say it is the product, right? It's not the method. It's the product that was delivered by that practitioner of the method, right? Not every CrossFit gym, unfortunately, is great. Most of them are. Yeah, I've probably been to 35 or 40 gyms. Now there's 13,000 of them or more, but of the 35 or 40 gyms in the past 12, 15 years that I've been to a couple that could have probably had better coaches, but for the most part, they've been fantastic.
Well, if you actually look at I was looking at that pyramid there, and I remembered, you might remember if you've done the level 1 more recently than I have, but the
2011.
mechanic. Well, that is a bit. That is before. But if you see the actual, I think in the level 1 manual they actually have this other pyramid, because I just typed in CrossFit pyramid mechanics, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is in the level 1 there, whereas it's left off of that other pyramid that I showed. Mechanics is part of the methodology.
Oh, it is. It is. It's not a pyramid, but it's the core concept. And this is one of the things that people who blast CrossFit don't know. They've never heard the phrase, technique, consistency, intensity. They've never heard it.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. They don't know what it means. They've never heard the term scaling.
Yeah.
They don't understand any of that stuff. So when they look at someone, and the most common thing you hear is, weightlifting movements aren't meant to be done at high reps. It's like, guys, that's like saying any movement isn't meant to be done at high reps.
Well, that's like, yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like
just because the sport doesn't do it that way doesn't mean that we can't adapt the movement to develop other aspects of fitness.
And
right?
fundamentally, that would be like
I'm not
saying
doing
never
clean
run.
and jerks in a CrossFit class because I'm trying to become a professional weightlifter.
Yeah.
I have a specific target of what I'm trying to develop. And that is where dropping the weight, focusing on technique, right? I mean, the whole idea of technique, consistency, intensity being at the core of how we coach is just completely missed by most people.
Because that drives adaptation, right? If you maintain all of those mechanics, consistency, intensity, you adapt,
Correct.
which is basically mean that I'm adapting physiologically, which means I'm changing my body, which means I'm transforming to be a better human.
Bingo. There it is.
If you don't do that, then you don't have the endocrine stimulus to adapt.
Well, and there's this whole central nervous piece of it. There's even getting into the mental aspect,
Oh,
right?
gotcha.
Here's the thing. What we say when we say become a better human being, we're not just talking about metabolism. We're not just talking about strength, mobility, or we're not just talking about endurance and stamina and agility and balance and coordination and flexibility and power and speed and strength. Like, we're not just talking about those physical aspects of fitness. For many, particularly in general population, for many of the people that I've worked with, the ability to do something, you said this earlier, most of them don't think they can, right? The ability to do something they never thought they could do makes them better, right? I remember when my mom was my first client when she was 60. She started working with me. The first time she did a 20-inch box jump, the level of confidence in her ability that she has had since that time, and that was years ago, right? The love that she has developed for deadlifting, the love that she has developed for staying in shape now, she's in her 70s, comes from the continual progression and her seeing for herself that she can do things she never thought she could do. So that's really where I think a lot of the benefit comes from. Yeah, there's a ton of physical benefit. But going back to that survival and living in this modern lifestyle, nobody's challenged to do hard things anymore. So we don't know that we can do them. And when we see something in front of us that's hard to do and we go do it, that puts us in a whole different mentality about how we live our lives.
Have you got any thoughts on what, just say your mum joined a running club, or just say she joined a tennis club, and she got better at playing tennis or got better at running. Do you think that the stimulus would give her anything remotely similar to being able to deadlift and box jump?
That's a silly question. Absolutely not.
Because a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people, just serendipitously, like how we stumbled into CrossFit, like that fellow on the boat.
Sure.
For you, will stumble across tennis clubs or soccer clubs or whatever, and they will rave about it. They'll say, "It's so good. I'm so glad I found my local running club because it's changed my life." What is the difference? What do you think is happening for those people?
I think so. It's the same. The only difference is in what they're developing, but the experience is the same, right? So the experience of, I found a group, I found a community, I found people that I relate to. We're doing things that are fun and enjoy. I'm getting out. I'm using my body. So all of those aspects are still there. It's just missing. There's a different intent. There's an intent or an expectation, and this goes into the ignorance and the lack of understanding that we talked about before, of connecting work capacity, physical capacity and ability, and what fitness actually is to what we're doing in our activities. So most people don't understand fitness. They don't know the 10 components of fitness. They don't understand the metabolic pathways. They don't understand any of these things, right? They don't understand seven essential, or I call them 7 essential movements. I know that's a little different CrossFit based, essential movements, but so they're thinking I'm being active because right now society equates activity with fitness. As long as you're busy, As long as you can walk 10,000 steps a day, then you're doing stuff to improve your fitness. So there's a lack of understanding of what fitness is. So for them and the view and the picture and the information that they have available to them, it's great. It's fantastic. It's awesome. What happens, and this is where I fit in what I do mostly right now, is working with people who have been doing that for 10, 15 years. Right. I have a running client right now. He's in his 50s. He's been running for 20 years and started realizing, hey, my running is getting worse. What's going on? And then we got to look at, hey, what is your schedule? What is your training? Are you doing any other things besides running? How often do you run? How long are you running? What are you eating? Right. And we start looking at all of these things and these patterns that have been taught to these people, to most people over the last 50 years about what they need to do for nutrition to fuel their sport, which we know is way off. And we'll talk about that a little bit, I think, because I have some work that I'm doing in that arena. We have many people who think that more is better, right? And most of my athletic clients, overtraining is the number one issue. I have more people in their 40s and 50s who are dealing with OTS, overtraining syndrome, than you would ever realize. Right. And unfortunately for them, in many cases, the only remedy is to stop doing what you're doing completely. Right. And for runners, particularly, it's always the runners. It's always the endurance athletes.
Absolutely.
All they want to do is run and bike. It's like, guys, you got to do you got to get some squats in. You got to deadlift. You got to stretch. Right. You got to do.
Bronson, I saw a patient today who was a professional runner.
Yeah.
He had stress fractures of his sacrum on both sides. He had osteoporosis. He had osteitis pubis. He had no glute. He did not ever squat.
Yep.
But he can run 42 kilometers or whatever miles in some unbelievable time.
Right.
And he thinks he's fit and healthy.
Exactly. Because he's got a high VO2, he's got low body fat, so he must be healthy.
So the functional movement element, the mechanics of functional movement, is one of those primal requirements that were the pillars that we talked about, the pillars of movement quality. And that's where the other activities, if your mum had stumbled across a tennis club or a running club, she would never hit that nail on the head.
Correct.
Even though she might think, Betty and Bob, and they're my best friends now, and I love hanging out with them.
Yeah.
So there is.
It's a great place to start, and I would rather have someone join that running club than sit on the couch.
Yeah.
Right. But at some point, we have to get out there, and this is why we're doing what we're doing. We want people to understand that there's more to your quality of life, particularly as you get older, than being able to run. Self-sufficiency isn't a single modality equation.
That's really, really interesting. I think that the pedometer, those little pedometers and your mobile phones that count your steps and stuff on your Apple Watch, the only people who count their steps are all unhealthy. It's almost
an interesting point. Yeah.
It's almost like, is it association or causation? If it's so common that people who tell you how many steps they've done today are overweight and have diabetes or high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Because it's not targeting any of those things that contribute to the pillars of health.
And it's honestly, it's a lie. And this is one of the things that when I've been in the ketogenic carnivore space since 2018, and my message has consistently been, I'm most of the people in the space don't really think of me as a carnivore person, because while I am carnivore, I follow a carnivore diet. I talk about fitness more than I talk about food. And I often get left out of the carnivore conversations because people forget that I'm, that's what I do. But people don't realize, and whenever I talk about this, people go, "What are you talking about? This is crazy. I've never heard anybody say this before." Cardio as a modality, as a training method, simulates a healthy metabolism, but it doesn't develop a healthy metabolism. because the minute you stop doing it, it stops working. If you have a healthy metabolism that you develop through resistance training, high intensity effort, and doing of various, like CrossFit stuff, right? Where you're exposing yourself to a bunch of different stimulus on a regular basis that forces your body to adapt based off of lean tissue, right? And metabolic efficiency, then it will be more efficient even when you're not exercising, right? So what happens in cardio is you get good at cardio. Technically, what you're doing is you're making yourself have to do more cardio. So if I get a certain stimulus at 20 minutes a day, eventually that goes to 25 minutes a day to get the same stimulus. Then it goes to 30 minutes a day. Then it goes to 40. Eventually, in order to get the benefit of cardio, you're going to have to be on that treadmill for 2 hours a day to get, and because you're going to be like, nothing is changing at some point. I got to keep adding that intensity. If you build lean mass, if you improve your movement, if you build your work capacity, cardiac output, and all of these other things, then you can build that metabolic function to where you don't have to work out and it will still go. It will still keep working. So that's the biggest thing about, I think, the lie when it comes to fitness, right? Everyone's talking about zone 2 and get your steps in and all this other kind of crap. Yeah, that's great as a component, but it's got to be mixed in with other things. And most people don't know that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, maybe that's a good little time to switch over to the
there we go.
The famous fitness in 100 words and a bit of nutrition. It as we showed before, it's considered to be the base of the pyramid. Almost like it doesn't matter what you do to your vehicle. The most important thing really is what you put in the petrol tank, right?
Yeah. Well, I have a yes and no. I think it's kind of a chicken egg discussion because you can have great nutrition, but if you're not doing the other stuff, what's the point? So I think it's kind of because again, I started on the fitness side and then I found the nutrition piece. So I think it can be one or the other. At some point, you just have to include them both. Go back to that pyramid again, because this is something that I want to call out, that I think this is one of the few mistakes in this methodology that I want to address. And I think at the top, it says sport. I think that should say quality of life, because for the general person, life is their sport.
Yep.
And CrossFit is not designed to develop athletes. And I think that context, that concept is the one area where many CrossFitters, particularly competitive CrossFitters, and this is how I was brought up at 12 Labors. When I first started CrossFit, everybody in the gym was athlete. You're an athlete. You're not a member. You're not a client. You're an athlete. And it took me a long time to realize, no, I'm not an effing athlete. I'm a dude. I'm 40 years old. I'm trying to just live my best life. I'm not an athlete. I don't need to be an athlete. I just need to be a better version of myself. So I think that is something that gets misconstrued, particularly when you look at the games versus what happens in most CrossFit gyms. Most CrossFit gyms do not have athletes. And if you are trying to, and if you're a coach, if you're a gym owner and you're listening to this, and if you are calling your people athletes, you might be doing them a disservice because you are not meeting them where they are. So that would just be something I'd call out there. I think that's probably the one thing in this whole methodology that I would change.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's a lot of refinements. I mean, obviously Greg probably didn't. He probably spent half his life mulling over these very pertinent little information pearls of wisdom, and he's probably refined them to be as impactful as possible. But the sport, I probably agree there. maybe the way to think about it is like the relativity term. Remember, it's relative intensity. And
Mhm.
what do I say? What I say to some of my members who transform from being in a wheelchair to having throw the wheelchair out, having no requirement for pain medication anymore, and then um, being able to do a WOD, is that in relative terms, you've won the CrossFit Games.
Absolutely. 100%.
You've won. You've won the CrossFit Games in your world and in your relative space of your ecosystem. You've 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 matched Matt Fraser and Rich Froning.
Well, it
You know,
gets
like
the whole,
because you now know you can now mow the lawn.
yep.
And CrossFit and all of those pillars that we're talking about have allowed you to do that. For Matt
Correct.
Fraser, for Tia Claire, for Rich, it's for them. It's literally standing on the podium, but it's no different. The underlying fundamental things that are happening to the human being are no different. It's just at a relative scale.
Right. It's intensity, not type, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. A professional athlete versus grandma, they
Mm-hmm.
have the same needs,
Yep.
but it's not the type of things that they need that are different. It's the intensity that they need is different.
Yep.
You know, I tell people all the time, your fitness goals should start. If you're wondering, if you're listening to this, or if you know somebody you're trying to get into CrossFit, here's how you sell it to them. What is the one thing in your life that is physically keeping you from doing the things you want to do? That is your fitness goal. Getting that thing to disappear from your life is the reason you want to start CrossFit. Because if you can't get up and down off of the floor to play with your grandkids, CrossFit will help you do that. And then you never have to worry about being able to play with your grandkids again. If you can't go into the garden and garden like you used to 10, 15 years ago because your knees hurt, your back hurts, whatever else, CrossFit will help you do that. So your fitness goals should always start as a beginner. Your fitness goals should start with what are the things in my everyday life that I can't physically do that I want to be able to do. That is what CrossFit's going to help you do. That's how you get started. That's your motivation.
Yep.
You don't need to worry about how much can I deadlift right now. You don't need to worry about how fast can I run a mile. You don't need to worry about learning, I need I can't do double unders. Who cares? We want to get you to the point where you can do every single thing you want to in your everyday life better. That's your motivation. That's how you get started.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
Okay,
and you don't need to eat carbs to do it.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
that.
So, eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. Keep intake to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. Okay, so that's
Yep.
like that's the big nutrition component. That's the big metabolic component of fitness in 100 words. So what's happened? What's happened to the base of the pyramid within the CrossFit
It's a
space?
mess. It's a mess. Everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's trying to sell something. Go back to the 100 words, because here's the thing. And I want to make this clear because everybody tells me all the time, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. Okay. It should say no alcohol as well. I did all of that for years. And I gained weight back, right? I initially lost 70 pounds. When I started CrossFit and I started changing my diet, I initially lost 70 pounds. I gained probably 65 of it back. As a CrossFit gym owner doing CrossFit all of the time, I gained it all back. Eating just that way. No processed foods, nothing. No alcohol. I stopped drinking alcohol. I did all of this just like this says. And I went from almost 250 down to 161. I think my lowest was 175, back up to like 250 or 240, 245, right? while doing this and doing CrossFit. So I got in better shape. I was almost 250 pounds. I could do a Fran, right? I could do a Grace. I could do a Filthy 50 all day long, right? But there was a point in time as a gym owner, we had a pool party at one of my members' houses. And again, someone took a picture of me on the diving board. I saw pictures later. I looked at that picture and I was like, what the hell is going on? That guy on the diving board, this is now almost 10 years later from that first picture that got me into doing something on the beach. Mm-hmm. That guy on the diving board looks exactly the same as that guy on the beach almost 10 years ago. What the hell? I'm in better shape than I've ever been in my life, but I'm still this fat slob. What is going on? I don't understand. And I was struggling with this whole idea of trying to improve my lean mass and lose body fat. Every time I did that, guess what happened? I got weak. My physical performance decreased every single time I did that. And then, okay, now I want to get strong. I need to get better at my work
what
capacity.
Did you do? Did you just try to
reduce?
Did you just reduce calories, or what was your?
Yeah, I mean that's what they tell you. You got to be in a deficit to lose, right? Right. So I go in a deficit. I get weak and skinny, and then I have to be in a surplus to get strong. But oh, look at that! I got fat again too.
Yeah.
Right. I had this cycle.
The yo-yo dieting.
Yeah, but even more importantly, and this is what affected me more than that, that was the visual of what I was seeing. And it wasn't until I realized the level of sickness that I was having was not, because I didn't know anything about A1C at the time. I didn't know anything about blood sugar. I didn't know anything about insulin. I didn't know anything about inflammation, any of that. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff, right? I had IBS. I had urgent bowels. I was miserable when it came to my gut health and the way that was controlling me. I couldn't do anything in my life without going to the bathroom or knowing where the bathroom was, because at any point in time, I would have to stop whatever I was doing and go. I don't even want to get into the things that I've had to do because of my bowels.
It sounds like the athletes at the CrossFit Games where they go to the toilet 15 times a day.
Yeah. Right. It's absolutely ridiculous. So there were a lot of things going on that, even though I was following this exactly, right, my life was miserable. And it wasn't until I completely cut out plant-based foods, all plant-based foods, and only went to meat and eggs and sometimes cheese, that all of that went away. But even more than improved body composition management, even more than complete remission of all IBS and urgent bowel symptoms, right? The biggest impact on my daily life was being able to train again the way that I wanted to train. I was at a point in my life in 2017, 2018, where I had a torn meniscus in my left knee, two labrum tears in both shoulders, herniated discs in my neck, chronic pulled groins, chronic pulled calves, chronic pulled hamstrings. I was at a point where, as a gym owner trying to work out consistently, if I got 2 WODs in a week, that was a lot for me because I just hurt all the time. I had more time recovering than I had training, and it was driving me absolutely crazy. The minute I stopped eating plants, right, it took me about 90 days to start realizing, hey, wait a second, I don't feel like shit anymore. My knees aren't hurting anymore. My shoulders aren't hurting anymore.
That's crazy.
Right? And I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on? And that's really where I was like, I need to figure out what it is about nutrition that is making this different. I didn't start the carnivore diet because of that. I started because I wanted to heal my gut.
Yep.
Right? It was a gut thing for me. It was a digestive health thing for me. But then I realized, 3 to 6 months in, I realized, wait a second, nothing hurts anymore. I can do muscle ups again and my shoulders aren't trashed after doing 5. Yep. I can do this, I can do that. Wait a second, my knee, I can squat again. What the hell is going on? Like all of these things started getting better. And that is why meeting Dr. Amy West and looking at the work that she's been doing in insulin resistance, glycemic variability, and musculoskeletal issues was impactful for me, because watching, getting to know her and listening to her work, that's when I realized, this is years later now, this is almost 8 years in, that's when I realized my health was not evident in my A1C. My health issues were not evident in A1C. They were not evident in my inflammation markers. And if they were, I wouldn't have never known, because I never really cared or knew about them. I never knew about that stuff. Right.
Mhm.
But if you look at the correlations and the relationship that she talks about in how glycation from constant carb input, particularly the spikes and the drops, that up and down of glucose in the system, impacts the health of your ligaments, tendons, and muscles, and how they basically destroy the structure of how the soft tissue works. That's where a lot of injuries come from. That's what I was living.
Mhm.
It was like, wait a
It's
second. That was my indicator that my metabolic syndrome was in full effect, because I couldn't do anything without getting hurt.
Mhm.
And now here I am 8 years in. You give me something to do and I'll do it. There's very few things that I don't do. Like, I don't do overhead squats anymore. I don't see a need for it. I have physically, the damage has been done. I've never got anything physically repaired, right? I've never gotten my labrums repaired. I never got my meniscus repaired, but it doesn't limit me in most of the things. I can still do muscle ups. I can still do kipping pull-ups. I can still do butterflies. I can still do all those things. There's very small group of things that I don't do because of the physical structure is compromised.
Structural.
But the day-to-day life and the being able to work out consistently,
Mm.
completely fine. I'm 53 years old. I train 4 to 6
Oh,
days a week.
I just showed some photos of your physique, and bloody like you're a 25-year-old. The This diet that you talked about, so it's almost like this is a glorified eat in moderation type of diet, like a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
Do you know, like everyone says, oh, everything in moderation.
Yeah.
That's a
And it's
common
great for most people.
it's common catch cry, but you were doing that and you got sick.
Yes.
You were metabolically sick eating in moderation, and it wasn't until you eliminated the plant-based foods that that allowed you to become healthy.
Correct.
So what do you say to people, and this includes elite athletes, who say, well, look at me, and last fortnight we had Bill Leahy on the podcast. Bill Leahy is a games athlete, and we talked a little bit about nutrition. What do you say? G'day, Bill, if you're watching. Um, what do you say to those athletes, Jason Hopper, all of the big carb loaders, Fakowski? They talk about how many kilograms of carbohydrates they have, not grams, like kilograms
Yeah.
of carbohydrates. And they say, well, I feel pretty healthy. I'm a games athlete.
Sure.
Look
Sure.
at me. So what is the fundamental thing going on there if that athlete came to you as a coach?
Yeah. So they wouldn't come to me as a coach unless they wanted to make a change because they felt there was something wrong. So that's the first thing to understand. If they don't think there's anything wrong, then I'm not coaching them.
Sure.
But to start off with, the longevity of their ability to perform at a high level is being compromised because of the exact issues that I'm talking about. They are at a higher risk. Now, I'm not going to address the elephant in the room that's been in discussion a lot lately. There might be some other things going on that is impacting their metabolic function or how things are impacting their recovery and stress, right? It's not all just food that's happening. There's some peptides and some other things that are in the mix as well for many of them. But that aside, at a minimum, we're finding, and this is one of the studies that I'm currently doing. I'm very specifically working on a study right now. I'm doing a systematic review of every study that is out there in the world that I can find that looks at carb supplementation in CrossFit athletes.
Mhm.
And as of right now, I can tell you the consistent theme in every single study that I've found is that carb supplementation does not improve performance. And at a minimum, let's just say the diet, the carbs in the diet at baseline, let's just say that that is enough and we don't need all the supplementation. Then now we're talking about why are they doing the grams and the hundreds of grams a day, right? If it's not needed. Just in cutting that back, let's just say they don't want to change their diet to a keto or carnivore diet. Okay, great. What if you just cut back the 200 to 300, 400, 500, 600 extra grams of carbs per day to fuel your exercise and reduce that glycemic load, reduce that glycemic variability, right? Reduce that oxidative stress and inflammation on your body, which could exponentially improve recovery, right? Potentially without needing as much external other substances to help with that recovery, right? There might be a trade-off. Maybe if I cut back some of these carbs every day, I wouldn't need some of these other supplements to help me recover better, to do more, right? So there's a trade-off there. And I think that not being in the conversation and no one being willing to talk about that, I think is really doing athletes a disservice. So there's a lot of the information that we have when it comes to nutrition is based off of old science. There's a lot of new research in the past 5 years. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when it comes to the ketogenic or low carb diet, of all of the research that's been done in the last 20 years, since the early 2000s, over 50% of it, particularly in the sports and exercise science fields, over 50% of the last 20 years of research has happened in the last 5. Right? We know more about the ketogenic diet in the last 5 years than we've known in the last 20.
Yeah.
And most people are not up to date on what that information says.
Yeah.
Right? And that information says you don't need as many carbs as you think.
Yep.
That information says lactate threshold, your ability to fight fatigue, will be extended when you have less carbs and you're fat adapted. That data currently says that you will be able to burn fat as a fuel source at up to and over 85% of VO2 max, which means by definition, fat does fuel high intensity effort. Absolutely every single time. And it's been reproduced multiple times, right? That current research in the last 5 years supports that glycogen replenishment. And this actually goes back even further. This goes back to the 1980s. That glycogen replenishment is identical, whether you're fat-based or carb-based. You're not going to deplete your glycogen stores. It's not going to happen. And even if it does, it's not going to happen to a point where you can't perform.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of things about ketogenic nutrition and performance that most people don't know about. It's only been 5 years, right, that this information's really started coming together, and it's going to take 30 years to change institutional knowledge. So that's where we're at the point now. This new stuff coming out, new studies that are happening. The thing that nobody talks about is, what is the impact on health? When we look at the whole athlete, right? Many athletes, I think it's on average, it goes anywhere from 8 to 12% based on which marker you're talking about. But I think let's just say 10% on average of high performing athletes, professional athletes, have dysfunctional cholesterol, dysfunctional cortisol, dysfunctional blood glucose management, right? Pre-diabetic, hypertension. All of these things are happening because sports nutrition is focused on performance.
Menstrual cycles gone. Menstrual cycles completely
function,
gone.
Yeah, because we're so focused on performing better in the sport, we've gotten over specific. And just like we have the pyramid of the general fitness for the general person, right? We're not looking at what is metabolic health as opposed to sport specific performance.
Yeah.
And we've forgotten the general consensus, the general concepts, paradigm in sports nutrition is that performance comes first. And where we've missed the idea that performance cannot happen in a metabolic vacuum. And
That's
if you
so.
don't take care of metabolic function first, then performance can be artificially improved short term, but it will not be sustainable. And you are going to break the athlete.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now. And that's what we need to fix. We've got to get back to metabolic function as the foundation.
Yeah.
And then build sport specific performance on top of that. And we're not doing that right now in sports nutrition.
Totally agree. It's almost like the athletes, they are great despite their nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Because a lot of them, and I see it all the time, you know, someone will win a competition and they'll give thanks to their nutritionist who's just been loading them up with, you know,
Yep.
sweet potato and chickpeas and you know, rice and obviously a lot of meat as well, but you know, lean meat, and it's like, yeah, you're great despite your dietary advice.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to the methodology.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and that's the challenge, right? Because theoretically, the way we're doing it now works. So it's hard to say, well, there's something better, because here's the thing, and this is the challenge, because the focus is on performance, we're not looking at the whole athlete. It's really hard to go to an athlete and say, hey, I need you to take 12 weeks off, adapt to this new methodology. It's not going to improve your performance directly, because here's the other thing here's the downside of the ketogenic diet and what we're finding in research, right? Direct performance doesn't change. Okay. And this is good in the sense that I can go to an athlete and say, becoming a ketogenic athlete, a fat adapted athlete, is not going to hurt your performance once you're adapted. The first 12 weeks could be rough, but once you're adapted, you're going to be fine. You're going to perform exactly the same as you do right now. That's what the data shows.
They're all terrified of losing
that they can't
strength.
see, and this is the part they can't see, is the metabolic function on the tail end will be much better. They will be able to perform at that same level, whatever level it is, for longer. They won't burn out as fast. Their chance of getting injured will be lower. Their recovery will be faster. And what that means is that over time, they should increase their potential. Their window for improvement should also get better and bigger. So they have a bigger growth area now, as opposed to being limited. So they are performing great under their current nutrition methods, but they are, in my opinion, they are limited in their potential for growth because of those same nutrition methods.
So it's a little bit of more of an investment in longevity, healing or avoidance of injury, recovery, being able to train, you know, harder and more consistent, and those things can sort of pay off in dividends, rather than hey, if you go ketogenic, you're going to become stronger. That's not what the research is kind of showing.
Correct.
But it's more of a it's an investment. And you said 12 weeks was what you.
That's what I'd recommend. The most studies are showing, there's another, I'm working on a few different papers. I'm doing another paper right now that's comparing adaptation periods to performance outcomes. And right now we're finding that there's a break point around 40 days. So around 6 weeks. Is that 6 weeks? Yeah, around 6 weeks. We're finding that, around 8 weeks. Yeah, six to 8 weeks. We're finding that I'm trying to do days and weeks. I'm trying to do math right now. It's early for me still. We're finding that anything before that, the outcomes are about 50-50, either reduced performance or no difference, right? But anything over that 40 days, it's all showing no difference.
Yeah.
So the data shows around 40 days, around 6 weeks. I like to give people, based on where they're coming from, 8 to 12 weeks is my recommendation for most people. Most people that I work with, even though I give them, say, expect 12 weeks, usually between 6 and 8 weeks, they're like, hey, wait a second, things are starting to look better. I feel better. I have more energy in my workouts, etc. So yeah, there's definitely an adaptation period that's involved.
Yeah. And also, like, if you think, what's your health going to be like when you retire?
That's
Are you
the
going to
bigger
have
thing.
are you going to have a heart attack at 60? You know,
Absolutely.
your career's 20 to 35 as a professional individual athlete.
Yep.
But if you keep chomping and glycating all your proteins with your high glucose diet, what is your coronary vessels going to look like? What is your central nervous system going to look like?
Yeah.
When you're 60?
Yep. Absolutely.
Is that not important? Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
This is
incredible.
a flip side discussion too, right? Where on one hand, it's interesting. We have the general public who thinks that nutrition is going to fix everything and they don't need fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these high level athletes who are using fitness to improve their performance, but they think because they're so fit that they're healthy.
Mm.
And we know that just because you're fit doesn't mean you're healthy.
Super
Right.
fit,
There's a lot of
unhealthy.
factors that go into how your body works that have nothing to do with your fitness level.
Yeah.
There are a lot of high performing athletes who are very unhealthy.
Yes. Well, it's ironic to think that anyone would say, look, I am elite. I'm an elite athlete. I'm the fittest on the planet, but I don't think I need to have elite metabolism to achieve that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. If you truly are the fittest on the planet, that should be linked to also having elite metabolism.
Sure.
Why would they not be? Why would not they not be linked? It's almost like that's the biohack to the next CrossFit Games.
Yeah,
champion.
right. They should have VO2 max testing for the CrossFit Games, right? What is your lactate threshold? What's your
insulin sensitivity? What's your insulin sensitivity? But there's a bit of a. Have you come across a lot of funding bias in science? Like, there's no real incentive to promote the science and the value of ketogenic diets. Like, butchers are funded, chicken farmers and egg farmers aren't going to fund it.
Yeah. I haven't found a
Whereas
lot of funding bias. I found a lot of just dogmatic people who don't want to acknowledge and specifically leave out concepts and methods in their research. I have a paper coming out. I've actually been working on a paper with, I'm not familiar. You're familiar with Dr. Noakes, with Professor Noakes?
Yeah. He's a
Yeah,
mate.
so I have a paper coming out with Professor Noakes, Philip Prinz, Peter Cummings, where we talk about VO2 max and substrate partitioning and how there's a bias in interpreting VO2 max numbers, and where, we can say in one study, and this happens all of the time, the studies that I'm looking at duration and performance, duration of keto adaptation to performance outcomes. The number of studies that use purely metabolic performance numbers with no physical output and claiming it's a performance output is mind-boggling. Right? They'll do a study and they'll say the lactate was this, the RER was this, the VO2 max was this, the crossover point was this. This is a detriment to performance. But if you look at the run times in the 5K time to complete, they're all the same. But because the metabolic markers indicate metabolic inefficiency, that's bad for performance. Like, no, they performed exactly the same. Who cares what their metabolic markers are? Their metabolic markers change because I'm burning all fat in one person, I'm burning all carbs in another person. You can't say that is causing an inefficiency if they both perform exactly the same. And that's the kind of thing that I see all of the time, right? It's like I can be an athlete, and if I train to improve my fat oxidation, if I train and do lactate threshold training to improve my lactate threshold, reduce my lactate production, and improve its lactate clearance, if I train to push my crossover point to a higher percentage of VO2 max, then everything's great. But if I change the way that I eat and all of those exact same things happen, somehow it's now metabolically inefficient. It's just, there's no acknowledgement of any of that. The comparisons are trying to compare apples to apples when it's completely different than that.
Yeah. What I had up there before was a friend of mine who's studying a human biology course, and she showed me this was as part of her lecture. Like we are really pushing against. We're pushing uphill. It's
Oh, very much
upstream.
so.
It's upstream. And here you can see humans must consume glucose as part of our diet.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
There is no essential carbohydrate.
Nope, not at all.
There are 9 essential amino acids. There are essential fatty acids. The omega-3 and the ALA. Like we can survive quite well with protein and fat.
Yep.
We could be on an Arctic tundra with not a single plant in sight and be very healthy. But if we went to some region that was devoid of fat and protein, we would die.
Correct.
So like there's so many little pearls or fundamental principles that show us that this is completely empirical and makes sense. Yet we have so much resistance from conflicts of interest and nutritionists who are probably educated by the big food manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the whole trail, but there's most nutrition education is 50 years old, and it all comes from old, food industry, bad science, old science, and none of it's been updated.
Sanitarium. Have you heard of? Do you know Belinda and Gary Fetke?
Mm-hmm.
You heard of those guys? So Gary's a mate of mine. He's down in Tasmania in Australia. He's an orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah.
But they sort of Belinda and Gary dived deep into the origins of the Sanitarium and Kellogg's companies. That it started out with religious basis that you had to eat carbohydrates for purity and things like that. And Sanitarium is now such a massive organization that they sort of underpin a lot of the nutrition education that and textbooks that our dietitians are learning from. And that was reflected in my friend's university course in Brisbane, Australia.
Yeah.
She's been told that you've got to tell patients they need glucose to keep their brain functioning. But what have we got here? We've got Joseph Kraft's insulin research, where he looked at people, giving them a glucose load and measuring their insulin response.
Yep.
Insulin is a absolutely key hormone in metabolic health and in athletes as well. What do you want to talk a little bit about the effects of insulin and the responses of insulin to carbohydrate?
Well, I mean, I think it's a fairly, I would hope most people understand that, when you take in carbohydrates, your insulin response is triggered. I think the biggest thing to understand that people don't know is that protein and fat have an insulin response as well. Mm-hmm. Pretty much any time you eat food, you're going to get an insulin response. And the difference between the two is that carbohydrates spike it. Mm-hmm. Protein and fat in combination increase it. There is a raise, but it's not a spike, right? So it's more manageable. It's not as harmful, and it doesn't create as much of an issue, and it lasts longer. So the area under the curve is very similar, right? But it's a longer process that's more managed if you're using protein and fat as your insulin stimulator versus carbs. So you can still have insulin in your system. Your body is still going to produce and utilize insulin. Just because you don't eat carbs doesn't mean insulin disappears.
Yep.
That's really the key factor there.
Well, fat is, and Professor Noakes talks about fat being the most healthy macronutrient,
Yep.
in the sense that it has the least insulin response when you eat saturated animal fats. But what Joseph Kraft kind of shows in his research was that once you develop insulin resistance, your ability to then deal with even like a sweet potato or rice or bread, which most people would not. Yeah, most people would not think that rice or bread or sweet potato, which is primarily starch, which is then starch is just long chains of glucose, right? But then it behaves metabolically no different to candy, confectionery.
Sure. Yeah.
The bread then and the potato that you're eating, if you develop insulin resistance, is no different to confectionery.
Right.
But the insulin resistance comes about. The insulin resistance creeps up over time, like you said in your bio, of when you became unhealthy and overweight and had the love handles, was because you slowly developed insulin resistance. You probably weren't eating donuts and ice cream, right? You were probably eating that moderation diet that you couldn't identify as being equivalent to confectionery because of the insulin resistance. And you didn't cure your insulin resistance until you went carnivore.
Correct.
The carnivore cured.
I was doing all whole foods, veggies, and sweet potatoes.
Whole foods,
right.
Yeah.
And that was
which is what they tell diabetics and people who have high blood pressure and dementia to eat.
Yeah.
So they're never going to be able to cure their insulin resistance.
Hey, I've got another call I got to get on in 3 minutes.
Okay, Bronson.
We could do this again. I would love to hop on. There's plenty more stuff we could talk about if you want to do this.
Let's end it. There's just so much to talk about here. But I think we touched on all of the important elements. So I'm happy that you've been able to enlighten our guests, mate.
It's been a blast. I appreciate it.
Let's stay in touch. We are completely on the same page, and I think we need more people talking about this stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks.
Take it easy. Nice meeting you, everybody.
Bye-bye.